Good morning, everyone. I'm Dennis Stone. I'm the volunteer president of World Space Week Association, and I'm thrilled that you're here. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this global networking forum. And the subject is communicating space to the general public in a big way. How do we do that better? What do we say? And I am so honored to introduce our moderator. Aarti Holla-Maini is the director of the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs in Vienna. So please welcome Aarti. Thank you so much.
So I'm just going to say, sitting down, I'm delighted to be here. My thanks to World Space Week and all our colleagues for inviting me here. Great privilege. This is a topic that doesn't really get enough attention. We always know that we have to raise awareness about the power of space and the transformational difference that it can make to people's lives. Yet we don't talk enough about, are we doing a good job? How can we do better? And so on and so forth. Storytelling is extremely powerful and everybody loves it. You don't have to be a child to love stories. You can be captivated by people, stories of people's journey, how they wound up where they are, and each one of our panelists here has such a journey to tell, and such a story to tell. So thank you so much for joining me. We have Dennis Stone, of course, from VAST and from World Space Week. You established World Space Week such a long time ago, and you're... yes, I know, but you've been...
Credit where credit.
But you've been a driving force and you've been a president for a long time, and I think it's a great platform for us to really, we should do more during that week together, really. We should really make more about it. There's a lot of different initiatives that happen in different parts of the world, but as the United Nations, I think going forward, we definitely want to work closer with you to make sure that people understand it is World Space Week. Why, and why does that matter? Okay, so we have Dennis, we have Candace Johnson, chief architect behind SES back in the day, but still holding such an important role in with so many different hats, Candace. And then we have Philip Planthold from Spire. Thank you for joining us. And of course, Camille, Galactic Girl. I don't know if you know her as Camille Bergen or you know her as Galactic Girl, but Camille, you have played such an important role in conveying the benefits of space and the importance of space, not just to younger generations, but to so many people around the world. Thank you all for joining me. I would like to invite each of you to actually just start with your story. Why is this important to you? How did you get into this? Why do you care about the storytelling part of space and World Space Week? Yep, please.
I'm going to stand back up.
Oh, right, okay.
Yes, yeah. We have like 5 minutes. Yes, Aarti, so let me just take a few moments to tell the story of World Space Week. And there we go. It's wonderful when technology works. This is wonderful. So World Space Week was indeed declared by the United Nations General Assembly in 1999 at the recommendation of UNOSpace 3 and the Vienna Declaration. And you see the whole article of the Vienna Declaration, Article 2, recommended that the General Assembly make this declaration of October 4th through 10th as an international celebration of the contributions of space science and technology to life on Earth. We were doing something called Space Week separately, but when this happened, we met with the UN in Vienna and said, let's join forces. And so, the result is World Space Week, October 4th through 10th. Part of the story is the concept of a media event and its efficiency in reaching the public. Have you heard of Earth Day? Yeah, everybody's heard of Earth Day, because they've been so successful. Many different environmental organizations, even though they may have different agendas and be talking different things the rest of the year, come together for one day each year and talk about the common ground they share, protecting the Earth and protecting the environment. And it's a media event. You know about it because you read the coverage, right? So space needs its Earth Day, and that's what World Space Week is. It's a time when organizations all around the world, individuals, teachers, and so on, can can talk about space in whatever way they want. And when we all sing at the same time, our voices are louder, punch through the media, reach average people everywhere, reach students everywhere. So it educates the public about the benefits of space, and it stimulates the workforce of tomorrow, about studying STEM, demonstrates public support for space, and promotes, of course, those who are involved. So there are many, many, many benefits, and they reach a wide variety of audiences, the general public, students, decision makers, and so on. And these are all pictures from different World Space Weeks over the years. This is the 25th anniversary. The first one was in 2000. Last year, World Space Week just ended a few days ago, October 4th through 10th, and we're still counting, right? Last year, there was over 16,000 events reported in those 7 days, or at least that began or ended, if there were long events during World Space Week. Hundreds of thousands. We don't know how many people attended, probably millions. Some years we've reached over 1 billion people, not we, but the celebrants of World Space Week together have reached over 1 billion people, according to the monitoring services that we keep an eye on about World Space Week. Sometimes people don't hold events or go to events; they just tweet, or they talk about their views on space, and put in that hashtag. So people are aware of it. They want to participate from wherever they are, and we're excited. And we have thousands of event holders, anywhere from teachers, aerospace companies, astronomy clubs, space agencies from all around the world. So it's, let me just go back. We don't have our final slide, but if you go to our website, you can see what was happening last week. We have our highlights posted. It's the time when we really need to, again, get together, talk about the common ground. We have a theme each year. The theme this year is space and climate change, and we'll be announcing our theme here shortly, but for 2025. Or should I be announcing it now? I don't know. It's living in space, something that we think is the future holds for many. How many people were there in space one day this year? Like 20 or something. It's going to be more commonplace, and it's also, again, an inspirational theme. Teachers can use it to excite young people to be part of this great revolution in space, living in space, of course, and helping sustainability of Earth as well. So that's what World Space Week is about. I invite you all to be part of it next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. It is actually amazing. When I used to go shopping with my kids already 5 years ago, you could go into H&M and see a whole array of hoodies and T-shirts with space on them, NASA on them, and all kinds of things. Yesterday, walking around Milan, we walked past a vitrine with space dreamers. So it's really the thing. We have never been so fashionable as we are now. Let's hope that the benefits of this, we can actually help them filter down, go beyond fashion and filter down to people in the global south especially. Okay, Philip, can I invite you to please give your short presentation and tell us about your journey? Thank you.
I'm very happy to do that. So I'm Philip Plantold. I'm leading one of the business lines of Spire Global. And for you who don't know Spire Global that well, maybe, or don't know it at all, so we're like a satellite end-to-end or like full spectrum operator. We operate 100 satellites. We have launched 185 to date. We are not talking satellites. We are not looking satellites. So we're not like OneWeb or Starlink. We're not like Planet or Maxa. We're listening satellites. So our satellites listen to different radio frequencies. And our strong purpose of those data we collect from those constellations is obviously downstream services for climate monitoring, but also to increase efficiencies in industries like the aviation industry or the maritime industry. I think what is a cool story about Spire is when the company was founded around 13 years ago, we thought thought we would be an integrator and just use the different like manufacturer of nanosatellite technology to integrate and focus on downstream services. But what we realized at that point, the industry was not ready, the supply chain was not ready, so we actually integrated it ourselves and built it from the scratch and in-sourced everything. And we're a little bit like kind of a AWS setup there, because we built it for ourselves, then to do our downstream services, weather, aviation, maritime, and then realized we have grown quite some capabilities and have had strong technology learning curve over that, which allowed us then to help other companies to go into space, and have obviously successfully established now a business line called Space as a Service, where we help other companies to get their missions into space, either with hosting their payloads or helping them with end-to-end mission design and mission operation. Spire owns the satellites and operates the satellites, so it's really end-to-end. We have a ground station network around the world. And obviously, we feel very privileged in having a big impact on the space industry, particularly when it comes to like climate monitoring, and we do a lot of missions in that respect. I would like to invite you to listen or to watch with me a short video we prepared. If we could play that, that would be great. Thank you.
That was brilliant. What strikes me is that you can watch a space video and have all of the excitement and urgency when you're watching a launch, and yet you can have this serenity, or you can be moved. I mean, there's so many different emotions that space is able to generate. It's truly amazing. Anyway, okay, Candice, let me come to you. Candice, long journey, hundreds of stories to tell. Which one are you going to share with us today?
I'll share. First of all, it's lovely to be here, and Aarti and colleagues and my dear friend Dennis. So I'll share the beginning, which was in 1957, and it was indeed when Sputnik got launched. I was 5 years old at the time. I was living in Paris at SHAPE, Supreme Headquarters, Allied Powers Europe. My dad was doing telecommunications for NATO. And for Christmas that year, 5 years old, I got a little toy Sputnik with Santa Claus inside of it to put on the Christmas tree. Now this has been on my Christmas tree ever since. And people come from all over the world to see this little toy Sputnik. Now, I will talking about education and the World Space Week, because I'm very proud to be the vice chair. When I was 10, my dad was working at the White House. And so you have, fathers, now today it's mothers and fathers, and then it was just fathers would come and talk about what they did. And so my dad was working on the Apollo mission for President Kennedy, and he did the first satellites in the United States government, and then the first private satellites with Western Union. And, but at that time, it was 1962, and he came to my class and he said, we will have satellites for communication, for education, for entertainment, and 1962, and when we have wars, we will have wars in space and we will have peace on Earth. Now, of course, unfortunately, we do have the wars in space, but we're also still having the war on Earth, so we have a lot to do. I would like just to kind of fast forward, though, because I explain my life in space as having first used space to provide universal access. So with SES, it was satellite television when we first started it in 1983, if you can believe this. And then with Teleport Europe, which I started, and 99% got bought by L'Oreal, but I kept 1%, so L'Oreal Teleport Europe. It was for satellite telecommunications between the East and the West in in Europe. 1994, when I started I was on the founding team of Iridium, and that's how I got to know Jennifer. And talk about universal access. When Katrina happened and the tsunami happened, Iridium was the only communications platform that could save those people, and I'll never forget that. And then, just recently I started, 12 years ago, Oceania Women's Network Satellite to bring high throughput broadband internet to all of the islands in the Pacific with Pacific. And now, you're accessing the universe. So, with the Earth observation, with climate, et cetera. And I actually, with the James Webb Telescope and the fact that we are now being able to see the origins of our mankind, I really am talking about not new space, not old space, but one space that brings together deep space, near space, and the Earth and the planet. And all of this is really, we must never forget that all of our work that we are doing in space is for Mothership Earth. It's to make a better planet and for our humanity. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Candice. And there is a lot to be said for the legacy knowledge and what happened in the past. How did we get where we are? So I'm very glad that you're still active in the sector and that we can still hear from you and learn from what happened before. Thank you. Camille, let me come to you. You have found a way of combining outstanding brains with amazing charisma to really, become an exceptional influencer. Now, tell us about how did you transition into communications? How do you craft content that is substantive yet engaging? And how do you navigate the algorithms and make sure that you're actually going to make a difference with what you do?
The algorithms. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. My voice is a little bit gone because I partied too hard at Yuri's night last night. But so you might know me as Galactic Gal, or you might know me as Camille. Either one works. But I am a science communicator or a space influencer, if you will, to use that language on social media. I have a background in aerospace engineering, and I went to school for that. I started my career on Orion and worked at a couple of different space companies, big and small, and realized once I got to the real world that it was not what I was promised in college. In college you're doing math and you're learning, all these equations and you're learning the physics behind everything. And then when I got to the real world, for good reason, obviously we are so advanced today that everything is done on the computer. And I did not want to code, and I did not want to do CAD. And so I was actually going to leave the industry because I thought that that was the only thing that I could do with my aerospace engineering degree. And so I was working at Lockheed Martin at the time, and I went to an amazing mentor, and I told him, hey, listen, I've heard of this thing called business development. It seems really like nebulous, but I've also been told that it takes 10 years to build a technical background before you can go into business development. And I am the most impatient person in the world, and I wasn't going to wait that long. And so I was like, I guess I'm just going to leave and do something else. I don't know what I'm going to do because I just love space flight. But okay, bye. And he's like, no. We'll help you get into business development earlier. And so I did, literally just 1 year after graduating college, because again, I'm very, very, very impatient. And I realized in that role that I have this unique ability to tell stories, but I also have a background in technical, aerospace engineering. And so that in business development helped me, of course, bridge that world, right? Bridge the technical world with proposals and selling things to this new commercial customer that the space industry was really starting to think about in 2018, 2019. And at the same time, around 2020, SpaceX launched Demo 2. And it was COVID, I was bored at home, and I was like, I'm gonna tell all my friends about it. And so I'm just gonna post on my personal Instagram and use a few hashtags and see what happens. And that turned into over 500,000 followers today talking about space. And I just think that's so cool that there are so many people out there and so many more coming every single day, just wanting to learn about space and wanting to be part of this industry. And so actually earlier this year in February, I transitioned full time to my space communications and helping people understand not only what we're doing in space, but why we're doing it, and breaking down those stigmas of, it's a billionaire space race, and we screwed up Earth, so now we're going to leave and we're going to go to Mars, and maybe we should let them go to Mars, and I don't know, hopefully we'll be able to fix Earth too. And that's a really bad problem for our industry. Everything from getting new talent into the industry. We all know we have a STEM shortage, and it's getting worse. And we also know that the next generation cares so much more about our planet than ever before. They're also the most impacted. And so a lot of Gen Z, Gen Alpha now want to work in industries that are seen as sustainable. Not necessarily the most sustainable, but the ones that are seen as the most sustainable or the most impactful to life on Earth. And space has historically not been seen as that. Well, if we want to do more technology and we want to create new satellites that look back at Earth and do all these sustainable things, we have to be able to tell the stories that are about sustainability and how much we are improving life on Earth by looking at our planet from above. And so that's what I'm doing now, and I think I got totally lost on your actual question. But the algorithms, going back to the infamous algorithms. So we all know that media and everything is sensationalized now, and the crazy things, an asteroid's gonna hit Earth, or Elon's going to Mars, whatever. Those are the things that make headlines. Those are the things that go viral. But it's not always about going viral. It's actually most likely not about going viral. I've gone viral a few times, and I don't recommend it. It's very overwhelming, and it's you get the bad sides of the internet. But working with the algorithms, because unfortunately that is the world we live in, is really important to figuring out how do we reach new people, how do we tell the stories that we need to tell so that we can get more people into this industry and more funding and more political support.
Thank you. Excellent. I want to stay with you for just a second. Sure. We feel like if we want to communicate, we need to reach the youth. For me, I think one of the priorities is really embedding space into policymaking by design. We need to influence policymakers. Do we need to rely on the youth to do that? Is there a smarter way? What advice would you give space professionals on better communicating?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely think that youth need to be part of the conversation in more ways than they are right now. I mean, I look out right now and I don't see a lot of young people in this room. And I'm definitely the youngest person on this panel, which is amazing. And thank you for having me. But I think, again, it goes back to the next generation cares so much more about our planet. And I think everyone in here cares a lot about our planet, right? But from a broad, global, the whole generation, they care about it a lot more than other generations, I believe. And again, we're also the most impacted by it. And so I think bringing new perspectives into the room and bringing them in a way that it's relatable, so it's not seen as this old industry that isn't willing to change, but rather this new, exciting industry that can really change humanity, and being really relatable to younger people and helping bring them into the conversation so that we can have their perspectives and how they're impacted and how they're feeling about things. I mean, for example, Hurricane Helene just devastated my hometown in North Carolina, Western North Carolina. And I remember when I was 4, we lived in Florida, which is how I got into the space industry. That's another story for another time. But my parents wanted to move because they said, I don't want to live where there's a hurricane evacuation route. And now they live in Western North Carolina, and unfortunately it was devastated. And so, telling these stories of like, hey, I'm really impacted by that. My family was impacted by that. How do we reach those people and bring them into the conversation as well?
Gosh, shocking indeed. We see the changes from when we were young. I mean, we see the changes from when we were young. Here we have a young person talking about the changes from when she was young, which is actually not over such a long period of time. So that's powerful indeed. Thank you. Dennis, coming back to you. World Space Week is wrapping up today, I suppose, 18th of October?
No, the 10th.
Oh, sorry, wrapped up on the 10th of October, okay. Space and climate change was this year's theme. Now, I hear a lot about the number of events that are happening in Pakistan. I had the CEO of Hellasat reach out to me and say, look, we really want to make a big thing out of this in Greece. Will you come and support us? How do you actually reach out to people? How do you engage with people in so many different corners of the world for this?
Oh, it's not easy. We use social media. In fact, we started using it in, I think, 2013, and we saw this huge spike in the number of events. So we found that was very effective. So it's kind of a bottoms up where we reach people who follow space. We reach teachers who follow space by having, like in the United States, the National Science Teachers Association or NASA send out notices to their teacher lists. We work, top down, thanks to your office and the Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, by attending their meetings and talking to space leaders, encouraging them to celebrate World Space Week in those countries. And we're just amazed at the result, the diversity. We have videos of tens of thousands marching down dirt roads in Bangladesh, holding World Space Week signs and wearing World Space Week hats. And they don't even have a space program in Bangladesh, but celebrating the potential of space to help their developing nation. It's amazing what results from this. And we're so pleased the space community as a whole celebrates space together in this way.
But let me stay with Bangladesh for 1 second. Hang on, Candice, I'll bring you in. How does that happen? How do they even know about it? How does it happen that people are walking down the streets wearing World Space Week hats in Bangladesh?
In all these places, there's usually a driving force behind it. In that case, it was the Bangladesh Astronomical Society. Oh. Yeah, and their leadership. And I think one of them owned a print shop, so they printed out the signs and the hats and things and organized a rally and had speakers. It's great to see how people use local resources. Yeah. And and now they can download materials from the internet to help. And sometimes they have to translate them. There's some challenges, but they love space and they find a way to do it.
I'm going to stay on your Bangladesh example for 1 second, because one of the things that one of the case studies, my favorite case study that I'm always talking about is the Friendship Floating Hospital, an initiative supported by SES. Candice, I'm coming to you in a second, which literally, it's a ship which you can do operations on it, has doctors, it has nurses, and they literally sail the coast of Bangladesh, which has innumerable fjords, and you have poor and isolated communities who generally don't have a GP. We all have a GP. We have a doctor who follows us, who knows how we're doing from one year to the next. These people don't have that. But thanks to this floating hospital, which is connected by satellite, they're able to have some continuity of healthcare, get diagnosed for diseases that they would otherwise never even know that they had, and have some kind of treatment. I think it's amazing. But I bet you the people who are walking down the streets in Bangladesh have no idea. Most of the world has no idea, but already in the country itself, they may not know how their communities are benefiting from it. So here you go, back to storytelling. Candice, let me bring you in on this issue. Tell us your thoughts, share your thoughts with us on this issue.
On the issue of inclusion
on the issue of how we reach out to different communities.
Yes. Okay. Well, first of all, I was going to share that, of course, not only do we have a need to educate young people and teachers and people from really all walks of life, but I'm also the chair of Seraphim Space, which is the world's largest space fund. And so, at this august age, I get to, instead of having to do all of the work of the entrepreneurs, I get to invest in them. And it's really wonderful because we do invest around the world, and we invest in so many companies that are using space data, be it for insurance, be it for climate, be it for agriculture, be it for the oceans, be it for the medicine, be it for the rising temperature. Space touches every single one of our lives. And in fact, I don't know if it was you, Aarti, but we were together, when Clay Maori talked about the SDGs, so the president of the IAF talked about, the SDGs, and he said, well, why isn't there one for space? And there's this little block, and it was because he was told that space touches all of the SDGs, and it really does. But I am very, very proud to say that also, Seraphim, so we are celebrating, World Space Week. And we are sharing this with our investors, because we have investors also from all around the different walks of life. We have investors who are normally pension funds, who are investing in heavy machinery, who are investing in digital, and they don't know that much about space and how it affects all of our lives. And so the World Space Week is a very, very good way to share that. I will, since you did talk a little bit about SES, I talked a little bit about Iridium with Pacific Oceania Women's Network satellite. This was a group of women in the Oceania Islands that we got together because they needed to have, a high throughput broadband internet for schools, for villages, for governments. And so, we get such a kick because these people would not have education on these islands like Vanuatu, like Tonga. We provided the communications for all of Tonga twice when their fiber optic cable, went down. But I'll share the story of SES when we first got started, as I say, 1983. And, I'm an American. And so when we did the footprint, and that's the beautiful thing about space, is that there really are not boundaries. So when we did that first footprint, we did it for all of Europe, East and Western Europe. Now, of course, in 1983, there was a line that was drawn right through that. And everybody said, Candace, you're crazy, and why are we spending our bandwidth on that? And because I had that story from my dad that we would have peace on Earth and that we would be using satellites for that, I said, no, we have to do it. We launched on December 13th, 1988, and 11 months later, the wall fell down, and everybody in Eastern Europe wanted to have Western television. And we were able to put then the signals for their countries onto our satellite as well. And, and then when I went with the Prime Minister of Luxembourg, he was getting a little bit old, and we went to Prague. And, instead of looking at all of the wonderful architecture, we were just saying, wow, look at all of the dishes for satellite. So, satellite, I've seen so many things in life where satellites have been the most important element. So.
Thank you, Candace. Thanks again for that. Okay, Philip, let me come back to you. We hear a lot of people say, there's so many problems on Earth. Why are we investing so much money in space? And that comes from the lack of understanding of the transformational power and the relevance and importance of space. What is the hook, in your view, to really engage policymakers who don't yet understand the benefits of space and technologies?
Good point. I think, and here, again, what ties in nicely what you said about the publicity and what bad news are good news, and I think we use space data every day, be it for GPS in our phones, be it for our weather forecast, be it for other services, but still it's science and it's not exciting and doesn't make the news. But I think we as a space industry really need to get way better in making sure people understand what we do already today and what heritage we have already. But exactly, we need to also show the value we're bringing. And I think the space industry, that's a business to government, business to business industry. But the climate change and us becoming a sustainable generation, that's an us problem. That's not a B2B or a B2G problem. And I think here we really need to drive change. And we really need to make sure that the leaders of the space organizations and the space companies rethink how they spend their time in talking to the public and being available in social media nowadays, and make sure really that message is sent. And I think I see the transformation is happening already, thanks to social media being already so much more present in our lives. But I think we still have way more homework to do in making sure we send those messages out. For me particularly, I work for the aviation business line, and I think with aviation we have a huge challenge to overcome. Today aviation contributes to around 2% of the global emission. And who came by plane here? How many people came by plane? So look, and the organizations we work for, there wouldn't be the same type of organizations if we wouldn't have air travel. That's just a matter of fact. But it's predicted that by 2040, the CO2 emissions, with all the efforts the aviation industry is putting in already, will be 40%. Oh, sorry, 25%, 24 to 25%, sorry. And can you imagine how it will feel if you use a mode of transportation which accounts for a quarter of the global emission? And here we need to make the story clear that the space industry can help that industry dramatically and more efficiently use the airspace and be more aware of where inefficiencies are. And I think, that is a hook. And I think we need to work on it, but it only will work if we all collaboratively work on it.
I have the impression that we spend too much time as space people speaking to other space people, and that we don't get out enough. There's great events like IAC. We're all having a great time. We're doing a lot of networking. We're meeting old friends. We're doing a lot of businesses happening here. But there are so many space events and not enough space engaging with the other events. I went to COP and I participated in a Space Leaders Summit, but it was space talking to space in the context of COP. That happens in so many different events. How do we overcome that? Just give me your 2 cents on that No, I want to stick with you, Philip. Yeah. As a company, talk to me about that.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's difficult. You know, of course, you could see and try to go. Okay, like should we go to the Olympics, or should we go to some other events and be present there? And I think that's probably the right thought process we should have. Where are we not visible, and where can we interact with the communities which care for the climate and which we need to understand what we are doing? I think hopefully it's also like I see a lot of young people joining Inspire which have no background in the space industry. They come from complete diverse industries, some as an apprentice and study while they work with us. And I think it will already help that it's not only astrophysicists which work in the space industry, because then if you're an astrophysicist, you'll probably be prone to meet with other astrophysicists and talk about your business. But if you're like someone who has maybe a different, more diverse network, then you will talk about your job and other people will learn and hear like, oh, wow, that's interesting. And I think I see that happening already, that the silos are breaking down a bit. But again, we need to accelerate it more. And I think obviously using platforms which like this to discuss it and say like, okay, where else should we go? Where else can we be present? Where else can we make our mission and vision visible to the people who care for the climate?
If I may, it is also not only a question of speaking to certain people, it is also a question of changing the message. When we first started SES, we had a lot of hurdles. I mean, it wasn't even allowed to have a private dish, much less a private satellite system. But every single conference that you would go to, people would show an uplink station and a downlink station and the satellite. What we showed was a screen of 16 different television channels. Freedom of choice. That is what we sold. And when we sold, when I sold, services from Teleport Europe, it wasn't, we're going to put a two-way VSAT here because you can have communication. We said we will enable, in particular, the East European countries to have flourishing businesses. So Renault, Amway, the hospitals, they were all using our two-way satellite communications to be able to do their business. And that was the important thing. So I think it's the way that you communicate as well.
I agree, and I also think it's a question of personality and people, and we really need to find our best communicators and storytellers and put them out there and let them be the voice. You made me think of a couple of incidents in my previous life when I represented the satellite operators, and I remember distinctly writing a document about the impact of satellite services, satellite communication services, and one of my members said, "You haven't mentioned the word satellite once." And I was like, yeah, because we don't need to. I was like, no, you can't have, an association paper which doesn't even mention the word satellite. And I think that was probably the first time I questioned, am I in the right place? And I'm glad I'm in the UN now because that works really well. So going on to you, Camille, I just talked about personalities and people. You have been very bold in some of the posts that you make. You're not shy, and you get away with it because you're young. You're not shy in calling out the issues and forcing an honest conversation. That's what I'm all about, and I appreciate that. But how do we balance political correctness, responsible communication, and getting to the truth? Just give me your 2 cents on that.
I have way more than 2 cents on that. But, I think it's not being afraid to say the hard things and say what we're all thinking about. But a lot of people aren't willing to say it or are scared to say it or are in an organization where they're not allowed to say it. So bringing in independent conversations and independent personalities, as you mentioned, and thought leaders. Being independent, I have a lot more ability to say those kinds of things. But obviously, I'm always thinking about like, okay, how is this being perceived, and who's watching it, who's seeing it, what platform am I posting it on, what audience am I trying to get to? But I think it just comes down to like, being honest about what kind of change are we trying to make here? What kind of conversations are we trying to have? What conversations do we really need to have by listening to, other experts in the room and all the conversations we're having? And so, as a science communicator, I really excel in synthesizing. I can be in a room full of 100 people and listen to all of their different problems and then synthesize down to, okay, I think it's really X, Y, and Z. Now let's go out and have a conversation about that.
And if I may, just to, it's very important to correct falsehoods. About 2 years ago, Fortune did an article. At first, they wanted to do it just on me, and I said, no, let's get 10 wonderful women space entrepreneurs into this article, and we did. It was fabulous. But at one point, the journalist said, well, what is the driver behind the space industry? Is it space tourism? I said, oh my God. And so it took about, 3 days to really explain to her why it wasn't space tourism, to give her all of the examples how, space makes, for satellites, for the education, for the poverty, for everything. And, but you do have to sometimes correct falsehoods as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I call out a lot of falsehoods. I try to be as respectful as possible because you can't just tell people that they're wrong. They're not going to listen to you. And obviously, correcting falsehoods online, if I'm responding to somebody and they're like, okay, for example, they're like, oh, Elon, Starship sucks, blah, 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 why are we doing this? And, I'm going to respond to them and be like, no, actually it's this. And like, this is why it's really important. In a very, educational, factual, take out the emotion way. It's probably not going to change their mind, but people do read replies. Actually, a lot of time, I think a lot of people will consume the piece of content, whatever it is, a reel, a thread, whatever, and then they're going to be like, oh, I want to learn more. I want to know if this is real. I want to know what other people are thinking and if experts are weighing in. And there's so many people like me and science communicators online now that, and journalists and everyone online who's like, I'm going to respond to this so that other people can read it and be like, oh, okay, thank you. I have a better informed opinion now because an expert weighed in, and they can go and see my blue check mark and see my profile and see that I am an expert on this topic and not just talking out of my butt about it.
To add on that, I think that's also I see that with Spire, for example, because I was wondering, well, how can we afford to have a brand team, which is also focusing on not branding towards the business side of things. And I think, yeah, exactly, that's why. Because when those comments are coming, we need to focus on how do we respond to them. They're not comments from our customers about our services or about our capabilities, but about the general public's interest in what are we doing here, particularly when it's funded missions. And I think here also the rethink needs to start that you need an entire department of brand and social media experts in your organization focusing on this customer base, which is not your direct customer base, but the end customer base.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I know it says 12 minutes on there. I've been told that we need to leave time for other matters. But can I just wrap up? I want to thank everybody on the panel. I want to thank you for having been here. For me, the purpose here is really about people. It's about people and changing their lives and improving their lives in some way, thanks to the stories that we tell about the impact that we make. Yeah. So I hope that you enjoyed this discussion. Please join me in thanking our panelists.
Thank you very much, Aarti. Do not leave the stage, and all of you do not leave the hall, because we have two very special presentations to make. And for the first one, I'd like to introduce Jennifer Warren, who's with Lockheed Martin, Vice President of Global Affairs and Public Policy. Jennifer, thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. Dennis started his comments with a look at the World Space Week's themes. I'm going to go back to 2021 because it was a really important theme then, too, and that was women in space. And at that point in time, Lockheed Martin's Civil Space Business Executive, Lisa Callahan, was serving as honorary chair. And so we wanted to continue to recognize women's contributions to human spaceflight. And so on behalf of the World Space Week, this lapel pin of World Space Week Association was actually flown in or on Orion in NASA's Artemis 1 mission. And so we wanted to present this to the UN Office of Outer Space Affairs so that it could be on permanent display, not only to recognize women's contributions of the past, significant contributions of the past, but also we hope to inspire women and men's contributions to the future for human spaceflight. So thank you very much. And Aarti, may I present this to you, Madam Director? Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer, and it's amazing. Things flown in space. Someday we're all going to have many things flown in space, but it's so special right now. The last thing we want to do today is something very important, some more presentations. And for this, I would like to invite Candace back up, and we're so pleased that she's joined our board of directors and has been elected as deputy chair of our board. And we want to do just a brief ceremony to thank those who have really helped make World Space Week possible this year. Candace.
Well, you know, I am absolutely delighted to be here. And, you know, Jennifer and I have known each other for all of your life in space. I started a little bit earlier because I'm a little bit older. But it is so great. And Aarti and I have, you know, bonded a relationship. And, you know, there is something great about women in space, too. So it's my great honor to, you know, to honor those people and to thank and recognize those corporations that make the World Space Week, you know, so important. And, you know, throughout this lovely global networking forum, you know, we've heard powerful insights about the importance of awareness of space activities and of communication platforms in bridging the gaps between space and society, especially through longstanding outreach organizations like the World Space Week Association. And our honorary chair, Peter Platzer, unfortunately, his daughter, 10-year-old wonderful daughter who I know very well, is in the hospital with pneumonia. And so he could not be with us today. And he asked if I could, you know, do this ceremony of thanking all of you, which I am very happy to do. And he's incredibly, you know, thankful to you. So I would like to call out the stellar sponsors of World Space Week 2024. And those are Lockheed Martin, Spire, Viasat, and Eutelsat. And I believe that, should I now ask them to come up? Or? Yes, exactly, one at a time. So may I please ask Jennifer to come up for Lockheed Martin.
I'd like to invite Alma Okpalefe, the Executive Director of the World Space Week Association, to come join us. Careful here.
That would make me.
I'm also the stagehand.
Could you come here, please? Because of the light in your eyes. Come here.
All of us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Great. Sorry. Sorry. Great. Thank you.
place now. Yeah, just stay there. And then I'm delighted to also ask Nathalie Lettieri. Is she here from? I'm here. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, excuse me, Nathalie Lettieri from UNOOSA. And I would like to invite Philippe back to Philip back to the podium. Oh wait, yes, Philip Plantolt from Spire, so he will be representing Spire as our sponsor. Yeah. And I would also like to, here again make a special thanks to our partner, UNOOSA, the Women in Aerospace Network Europe, and the Asteroid Day Foundation for their support. We have so many people, who are really, really supporting us, and it's so wonderful. And we would also like to thank our planetary sponsors. Do we have a representative from Airbus here? Okay, thank you so much for all of your help. And you know what? Let's make this right. Come on. We have to do it right. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. All right. Yes, absolutely. We're happy for that. Thank you. And I'm also delighted to thank our planetary sponsor, also VAST. So Dennis. Yes. Thank you. And we're also delighted to welcome or to thank our education partner, SLOW. Are they here? No? No, okay. They sponsored the online telescope licenses to World Space Week and selected educators this year. So that was absolutely lovely. And I hope I have thanked everybody. But I would also, I would like to thank all of you for being here and for your dedication to bridging the gap between space, society, making this one space that I was talking about. And it gives me great pleasure to announce the honorary chair of 2025, so next year, who will be Robert Lightfoot, who is the president of Lockheed Martin Space. So we are absolutely thrilled to have Robert as our honorary chair. Honorary chair is very important because they tell all of their friends that World Space Week is great, and they get everybody involved and engaged. And, you know, this is the 25th anniversary, or will be the 25th anniversary of World Space Week, so it's very, very exciting. And I do want to also just express a personal note of gratitude to Dennis Stone, who's just been absolutely amazing. So Dennis, congratulations for all this hard work. All right, now let us go forth and do good.